welcome into the show. It's good to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Brett. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so we are chatting with Jim O'Hare. If you're just now tuning in, you heard that correctly. And we were talking before we started rolling tape, just an instant connection here about where we're at in the weather and just talking about how unseasonably warm it's already starting to get here. And you're in Southern California right now. And I've been following you on social media. You're back to work. You're working right now.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I started, I would say I kind of started going back to where it was getting busy last November.
Okay.
So before the holidays, I did a couple of shows. And then since the new year, it's been pretty busy. It's crazy how we have to work, but I'm not complaining because we get to work. But there's so much testing. There's so much you have to do while you're on set to make sure, to keep everybody safe. And there's no, one of my favorite things about what I do is, I'm a talker and I love
Of course.
hearing from people and hearing what they're doing. A lot of that has been taken away just because there's no hanging out there. If you're hanging out, you got to be 6 feet apart. You have these masks over your face, and not just the mask. They have shields now, and some sets have helmets. These clear through plastic helmets.
That.
Yeah, I mean, so it depends what you're working on, but it's really intense. But I don't want to sound like I'm complaining because I'm just so glad to be working. So it's not a complaint. It's just a fact that it's pretty crazy. But the fact that I've been going at it since November, I'm really fortunate because not everything is back. Things are, slowly coming back. They're slowly rolling out. It's a different landscape. Like pretty soon the networks are going to be announcing, they have what they call upfronts every year.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that's going to look like because this pilot season was unlike any other, which is expected, it's, I don't know. It's all crazy. It's just crazy. But yeah, so I've been at it since November.
Yeah. And for people listening who don't know what upfronts are, essentially it's where the network advertisers and other powers that be get together and shows get presented. Pilots cast comes and talks about the show and gets the network interested in great shows. That's the summation of it, right? And it's
they've already
a really big deal.
Yeah, during the pilot season, which is generally end of January through April, they're shooting pilots. They've picked ones that they think are going to go, and then they make their decisions, and then they present it. Here's going to be our network schedule for the next year. Well, this year, many pilots didn't get shot that they had hoped were going to get shot. So I don't know. My guess is, and believe me, no one's asking my opinion at these networks, but my guess is a lot of shows that might have been bubble shows that might not have been picked up for another season might get another chance because they're going to need product.
Yeah.
And then I've also heard a lot of shows are just going straight to order, which means the network is saying, just start shooting them, give us 6, give us 13, or give us 10, most of the Netflix shows. So it's just, the landscape has changed. It just really has. But they're doing what they can. These are unprecedented times. So they're just making it work. So I also think the old traditional pilot season, as we've known it all these years, is going away also. I think it's going to be pilots year round. And I think that was changing even before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think so, because as a interviewer and journalist, so to speak, I get all these pitches and emails of stuff coming up, and a few of them actually canceled. The press publicists were like, hey, actually, we're going to hold a beat on this because we don't even know if this show is going to go, because or a show gets stopped, and there's well, what are we going to do? And I don't know if it was deemed, essential. I think it was. Film and television was one of the first bigger industries to be able to go back and start doing things. It was crazy. We had all of these shows and everything, and then it just all halted. And it's what's going to happen to this character or this show? And we waited, and then people slowly started to come back, and it's great. You were talking about the onset experience. When I lived in New Mexico for years, and I was able to do some stand-in and some background work. And I remember how fun it was to just hang out with people and eat at craft services. And
Oh, dude, that has totally changed. Because believe me, actors love craft services.
Oh, we
actors
do.
love how we're treated at lunch and dinners and everything.
Yes.
That's all gone. Craft service now is a kind of a tented, kind of a little tent situation with a little opening, and you can say, "Can I have a Diet Coke, and can I have a bag of peanuts or whatever you want?" But in the old days, you would graze.
Oh, that's all you would do is just
go
back and forth.
And then even for the main meal, here's a quick, stupid, silly story because I'm such a dummy. A couple months ago, I think I can say it because I saw the preview. It's going to air next week. So I was doing an episode of 911.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I was like, that looked like you running across the street in the mask. Okay, that was you.
They had the fat man running in that episode, Brett. It wasn't good.
I was like, that looks like Jim. Yes. I was going to ask you about it, but you said it. So there you go. Yeah, that's fun.
It was great. But one of the nights we're doing a night shoot, and it's, again, in the old days when they would break, they call it lunch, even if it's at 11 o'clock at night, just because of the way the schedules work. So for lunch, you would normally go to this catering site that would blow your mind. I mean,
I'm sure
every type
anything you could want,
anything you can. It could be ribs, it could be chicken, it could be soups, it could be vegan, it could be this. I mean, it's just across the board. And then you go to the salad area, and that's all the different salads. Then you go to the dessert area, which maybe I'll have a couple of cookies, maybe a little piece of cheesecake. Like it's wonderful. Let's face it. So now things are different. So I'm on the set of 911, and they came to me early in the day to say, Jim, would you like to select your lunch? I'm like, okay, which I know how, it's going to be different because now it's not, you don't even eat together. You go right to your trailer. Everything is very separate. And again, it's for safety. So it is what it is. But I hit the wrong thing. So I get to my trailer from my lunch, and I had ordered, I thought I ordered some big chicken with potato. Like I was looking forward to it.
You were excited about your lunch.
I was excited. It turns out the button I hit was vegan ratatouille.
Ew.
And let me tell you, nothing against vegan ratatouille, but when you think you're getting something else and you end up with vegan ratatouille, whatever the hell it's called, it is a very sad event. Very sad. And I realize in the big scheme of things, not a big problem. But in the old days, literally a year ago, I would have had a couple of different things. It's just different. It's all very different.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. I mean, I remember I was doing stand-in work for a USA show, In Plain Sight, and we were filming at night, and they were coming through like at 2 a.m. with London broil and all of these hors d'oeuvres and Video Village. They're walking through, with all of these things, and it's crazy. But it sounds like if things continue to go the way that they have been, June 15th, everything is supposed to just open up across the state. I don't know if that will change the protocols on your business, but I think at least for the time being, maybe it'll make things a little bit easier.
My suspicion is, and I've been talking to other actors on sets when I've been working, we kind of think it'll be a 3/4 or a full year before things kind of go back to what they were. Like I think there'll still be a lot of protocol. I had been COVID tested in the month of between March and April. I had been COVID tested 37 times.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I was doing 2 shows. So I was bouncing around, and the test from one show is not valid for the other show. So many days I'm tested twice from, it's just the way it is. And I don't see that ending real soon. But, the fact that we've come this far is a gift. So
it is,
I'm not complaining.
No, I don't think so. I'm very curious though, for the actors who, let's say, have been vaccinated, if it will be different as far as everyday testing. I was talking to, a couple cast members from Chicago Fire, and she was telling me that in some of these more interesting love scenes or whatever close-up kissing scenes, there multiple tests are happening because the contact is so close. Or even a crowd scene that we've seen, where there's maybe hundreds of people, it's a cattle call, It's like crazy, unbelievable. But it's exciting that you've been able to go back to work, because for a while there, it felt like that all bets were off as far as entertainment and what we would exactly be getting, or if we would be getting anything.
And I think the reason the entertainment industry has been able to come back, and again, not full force, but it's definitely coming back, is because let's face it, there's a lot of money in the industry.
Oh,
and
goodness.
A lot of money, because this is not cheap. These tests that I'm taking every day, I mean, someone's paying for it.
Yeah.
All of every set now has COVID protocol people. Like, there's people whose full-time job now is to make sure people are doing it correctly. Well, you got to pay them. There's on sets where people walk around with a 6-foot stick, and if they see people talking and they're closer than 6 feet, they walk up and go, 6 feet, please, to let you can't be standing. And so these are all people being paid. So the budgets have gone crazy. It's adding, I've heard, and again, this is just the rumor mill, so this isn't for a fact probably, but I heard it's adding like $1 million an episode.
I could see that. It would make sense.
To the big shows. Yeah.
I mean, and bless the heart of the PA who has to be the one going around with that job. I mean, God.
I know. Because you know what? It gets frustrating. And yet,
I bet
they're just doing what they're doing because that's what they got to do.
Some grip that has to go interrupt to big people, actors who are like close talkers, or just how it normally is. Hey, excuse me, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, like I would just like to be a fly on the wall, just selfishly to see, but it'd have to be frustrating. I mean, you've done so many different things and you've been a part of so many projects. You got started quite early. I think one of your first things was the Rockford Files or something like that. And then
I forgot about that.
Then you just kind of took off from there. What was acting something that you got bit by quite early on, as far as like what interested you and what you wanted to do long-term with your life and career?
First of all, let me correct you. You said I got started early. I love that you said that, because yes, I'd like to think that. I moved to LA when I was 32.
Okay.
And some people are like, what took you so long to get here? Sometimes I'll question that. Like, man, what would have happened if I had come here earlier? But maybe it would have screwed everything up. So, things happen the way they're supposed to happen. Of
course, Maybe you wouldn't have had Parks and Rec. Who knows?
Who knows? Exactly. Well, there's even, it's funny, I auditioned only one time for The Office. And I didn't get it, obviously. And I remember at the time being really disappointed, because it was always one of my favorite shows. And now I think, thank God I didn't get it, because they might have been like, no, he did The Office. He already guessed it. His face is out there in this world. We don't want to cast him.
And the shows are pseudo similar in a way.
Yeah, no. So believe me, things definitely happen for a reason. But yeah, I always loved acting and stuff. One of my biggest, they say regrets. I don't know if this is big enough to be a regret, but in high school, I used to go to all the plays and stuff, but I was always afraid to get involved in it, because just being stupid and silly, and the drama kids, and they're when you're in high school, and it's just also silly when you look back, because I think I would have had a great time had I done it, because I always had an interest in it. But then graduated high school and I went to Loyola in Chicago, and I was so unsure of what I wanted to do with my life that I decided that I was going to be an accountant. And I decided that because I had other friends who said that's what they were going to do. I mean, just so ridiculous, But while I was there, I just randomly got associated with the radio station at the school.
Okay.
And that kind of opened up the doors where I realized, man, I really do like this kind of performance-y kind of thing, because they let you do whatever you wanted. They didn't care. It was like, it only reached a 3-block radius, or
college station. So they're like, here's like 2 rules that you need to follow, and just do what you can.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't say the F word, and don't be doing drugs while you're on air. Those are pretty much the only rules. But it was great, and it opened up a lot of doors, and it made me realize I want to look into that direction. So then I went to a broadcast academy, and I became a DJ. That was the first thing I did out of Rensselaer, Indiana. And a weird thing happened. It was a crazy, crazy situation. The owner was nuts. And anyway, but I learned so much. I made no money. I went into debt. It was all terrifying, but yet I learned so much life, good stuff for my career. But one day while I was there, the secretary came in and said, somebody wants to talk to you off air. I said, okay. I just figured it was a local, whatever guy or girl asking a question about some, we would have giveaways for a 6-pack of Pepsi, so it was just craziness. But it was some dude who said, I just want to let you know, my daughter goes to St. Joe, which is a school near where I was doing the broadcast. And, I listened to you. You're really funny. You should consider Second City in Chicago.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, thank you. And, that call, that was the end of that. I wish I knew the guy's name, because after I left that station, that kind of stuck with me. And I did that. I went to Chicago and I trained with Second City. And that's when everything changed, because the first day I was on stage, I can picture it as if it happened just now. And in my day when I went there, you went on the main stage where Belushi had been and Murray and like these icons, like now they have a training center and there's
now you're lucky to make it that far.
Yeah,
and if
exactly.
You're not super talented.
Exactly. But this is in the old days where you did it right on that stage. And I will never forget the first time, the teacher said, go up there. And I got up there and I got my first laugh. And it was, something happened. And I remember telling people after that, this is what I need to do with the rest of my life. Now, I never in a million years thought it would pay my bills. I just thought I will always have to be involved in this, as a hobby or something, because it really rocked my world. And so who would have known it would actually become a career? And then I got involved with a comedy group out of Chicago called White Noise.
Okay.
We did a bunch of really cool shows, especially for the time. We had video involved, which now you would think nothing of it because everybody can make a film on their iPhone. But we're talking the late 80s. And we had animation. It was pretty great. It really was pretty great. And then we did a show called Stumpy's Gang that involved puppets and blood. And it was crazy. And it became this cult hit in Chicago. We were doing midnight shows. People were showing up as my character. They were dressed as my character. And somebody said, we should try this in LA. Because everyone, when you're in Chicago, or my guess is any city other than LA, you always hear about Los Angeles is Mecca. That's actors Mecca in the pilot season. You got to do a pilot season. So, we had all thought about that. And then we said, let's do it. This show is just crazy enough. Let's bring it to LA and see what happens. And thankfully, through whatever miracle, it became a bit of a cult thing in LA. And it's mostly a one-person show with these puppets. There's a couple of other characters that come in and out a little bit, but it was really such a showcase for me. It was a gift. And because of that show, when I got here, I couldn't get an agent to take a phone call from me. It just wouldn't happen. And then the show starts and the reviews start coming out. And all of a sudden the agents start showing up. And actually, I shouldn't say the agents, their assistants start showing up.
Yeah.
Who tell them, you got to go see this. You got to go see this big guy sweating his ass off. You got to go see it. Anyway, one thing led to another. And then all of a sudden they're calling me, which was really like in my mind, I'm like, 3 months ago, you wouldn't take my phone call. And
that's how it always works. Like,
it
never fails, even in this podcasting industry, it's all so, simpatico as far as just how things work. I mean, it seems like Second City, UCB, that was just a breeding ground for so many people, especially in the 80s, like in the 90s too, obviously, with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and all of those amazing people, Carell. I mean, the list goes on and on, but really that was like the place to be in the comedy boom sphere as far as that goes. Did you ever find yourself interested in doing any kind of stand-up when you started getting those laughs? Did it ever cross your mind, or were you like, no, acting is where my sweet spot is?
Yeah, it did. And I entered a competition in Chicago. in the old days, you're probably too young to know this, but there was a show. Oh shoot, now I can't think of the. Ed McMahon was the host.
Star Search.
Star Search. Thank you.
Well, I'm 46, so I was still young. I mean, I remember seeing people on there, you know, like Chappelle and things like that.
Yeah, gay people. A lot of people are big stars.
Yeah, Roseanne Sinbad. I remember.
Rosie O'Donnell, all those people. So Chicago was what the show was doing local versions of it, and then if you won, you got to go on the national version.
Okay.
So a buddy convinced me to do stand-up, to try out for stand-up. And so we did it at this hotel in Chicago. It was kind of a big deal. It was the local version. And it turns out I won the night, but it was the process of elimination. So there was a 2-night gig. So I won the first night, and then you had to come back. And then the winner, when you came back, was the ultimate winner that would go on to further whatever. And so between those 2 nights, we said, I should probably go to one of these open mic nights and see what it, because when I did it,
I got the bug now. I'm funny.
Well, and I also had friends and family who came to the event. So of course they were super encouraging and laughing.
Of course.
So, so we go to this place, the Starlight Theater or something, somewhere in Indiana. And they were having regular stand-up guys and open mic guys like myself. And there was another big guy there. And I remember hearing him say to somebody, don't put me on after him. He's going to do fat jokes. It's going to ruin my stuff. And I thought, dude, I don't even know what I'm doing. I felt I guess the word would be a bit of a sadness with some of these stand-ups. And it put a really bad taste in my mouth. And then I went and I did the second thing, and I ended up coming in second place. Somebody else won it. And I vowed that night, I am not doing this again. This is terrifying. I don't want to this isn't what I do. I do want to do the acting thing. So but it was a good way to try. I gave it a shot. And since then, I have some dear friends who are stand-ups. They blow my mind. Number one, the fact they have to constantly come up with new material. And I'll never forget, Aziz once said, Aziz Ansari, who worked on Parks.
Oh, yeah.
So here they're writing. They do all this writing. And then if you do a special, or if you go on, Fallon or Kimmel or one of them, you kill that material and then it's gone. And now you got to come up with all new stuff. Like if you do an hour special, that's a lot. And now you're at ground zero. It is
a lot.
And so it just, I don't know. It all seems very daunting to me. I am blown away by stand-ups. I don't know how they do it. But no, I have no interest. Now, get me on stage with material. I'll do material all day long.
Of course, improv, you would nail it.
Somebody want to write me an hour-long show, I'm on stage. But yeah, it's just not my thing. Just not my thing.
Yeah, Matt Walsh was telling me the same thing when I talked to him.
I worked with Matt in Chicago. We did a play together called the Gathering, and
he mentioned you in our interview. Actually, he's like, after we were done talking, we were, he's looking at buying a house in New Mexico.
Yeah,
and he goes, "Have you ever had Jim O'Hare on?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He goes, "You should get him on your show because we have similar stories." Yeah, he said the same thing. He tried it, was like, hell no. And it just, and somebody who has talked to so many comedians, like from Howie Mandel, one end of the spectrum to the other, and I still am, I don't know how to say it. I'm very intrigued by them and their minds, what they do. Lisa Lampanelli, who's retired, but
a genius. I love Lisa Lampanelli.
And talking about the insult comic and how it's so different from other comedians.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole thing. And I was wondering, because it seems like a lot of actors who get their start doing improv kind of maybe at least once dip their toes in the water with stand-up, just to kind of, because they get those laughs on stage and they're like, oh, well, I wonder if this will transfer over. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Even Carell was saying that he tried. I mean, it's interesting, but I guess if I was doing what you were doing and I was experiencing instant success, I might give it a shot too and say, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if it's going to work for me or not.
Yeah.
But that's why I do a podcast, because it's easier.
No, and it's why I act. Let them do what they do. I do what I do. And I've gone up with stand-ups as far as I've done bits with them,
Of
because
course.
Jim O'Here's in the audience, blah, blah, blah. And
come on up.
Super fun. But that's planned, anyway. Yeah. I give them all the credit in the world, and I don't want to do it.
No, well, you've had so much success. And one last topic, obviously, I know we're on a tight schedule today. I want to talk about Parks and Rec. My God, this show, we talked about it. There was The Office. There were other shows that seemed to sort of kind of emulate your show, and other shows that have come on since then. The talking head, sitcom or multi-camera shows and things like that.
Documentary stuff. Yeah.
Documentary style, which obviously Greg Daniels, I mean, the guy's a genius with all that. And then, he's doing other things. But when you were in the heat of this show, were you able to realize just how big of a cult hit it was, and the fact that it would even stand the test of time years after it had gone off the air? Like, did you realize any of that?
Just the opposite. I mean, if you ever saw what went on there, we fought every year to even stay on the air. Like, we were not, I mean, we were critically, by season 2 or 3, we were a critical darling. So that was a given. We were, it was either Newsweek or Time. One of them said one of the greatest sitcoms of our generation, blah, blah, blah. So critically, we were good.
The people's champ on paper.
Exactly. But when the ratings came out every week, we were struggling. So Mike Shore, who co-created it with Greg, he basically just said to us, all we can do is a show. All we can do is the best show we can do. Everything else is out of our hands. And that's what we did. And it was the greatest experience ever. But to say that I think it would stand the test of time, I didn't think it would stand till the next week. I never knew what the hell was happening. And as a matter of fact, Amy found out later that she told all of us, Amy Poehler, obviously, who's the star of the show, she said that one time near the end of season 4, we were canceled. The bigwigs got on a plane in New York, heading back to LA.
Oh, God.
And during the flight, we were canceled. Somehow, by the time they landed, we were back on the air. So, I mean, it was all so tenuous. And Brett, every upfronts, which we were talking about earlier, when they choose what shows are going to come back every year, we would be, what have you heard? Has anybody heard anything? We'd all be texting each other, because the fear for us, number one, it's great to have a steady gig. So no one wants that to go away. But this wasn't like any steady gig. I've been on a lot of shows over the years. I'm 105 now, Brett. So I'm very old.
You look great for your age, by the way.
That's why I say it, because for 105, I look amazing. For 59, you're like, oh, that's too bad. So yeah, it's a good thing. But it was the time of our lives. I mean, the love and the laughter on that set every day was unlike anything I had ever experienced. And believe me, I am the happiest man in the world when I'm working. Like, it's just my happy place. So in general, I'm happy when I'm on a set. But Parks was above and beyond what the normal was, at least that I had experienced. So maybe other people would go, oh, that I've had that too. Well, good. So we didn't want it to end. This is just also because we were having just the greatest time. And then every week to sit down and do a table read with a script that is strong and stronger than the week before. And they kept that up for 7 years. I'll never know how they did that. Like that, the writers were brilliant. And I know I'm biased. It's, I was on the show, but a lot of shows, as time goes on, and it's just the nature of how it works, they'll have an ebb and flow season. Writers will leave, certain writers will leave. What I think the reason Parks stayed as strong as it stayed creatively is because Mike Shore never left us. Yeah. Even though he created other shows during it, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he co-created with Dan Gore. So he did other stuff, but he never left us. So his voice was always at the top of the show, which kept, I don't know, I just think it kept the quality. So no, to think it has become what it's become, I had no idea. I certainly would have dreamt that maybe it has, but we have become more popular now than when we did the darn show.
That's how it always works. Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I always knew it was a quality show. I always knew just the guests that they would bring in and the characters, the crazy town. It was a show that would just, touch people's hearts. I really felt that. But you never know what that means ultimately. And again, since we fought ratings every year, I didn't know. I mean, we could have just been gone. So we only had 2 times out of 7 years that we knew we were coming back. Like we sweated it out every single year. But what it's become is, people have said it's iconic. It's one of the top sitcoms that has ever been produced. Obviously that's speculative. Everyone has their own opinion on that. But if that's true, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have been a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, a great show. And just thanks to the gift of streaming, people can learn about this show and just watch it, stream it. I think it's on Netflix right now, or one of these.
Well, now it's on Peacock. They went over to Peacock.
Yeah, everything moved to Peacock.
Well, everything NBC has done is now on Peacock exclusively. Yes,
I know. Yeah. And I'm the one who was complaining, who had binged watched The Office a dozen times. And then I'm like, well, it's not, I've seen it enough. Yeah, I think everything's over there now. So, but be sure to watch it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Let me tell you a quick story. I did during the pandemic, I did an interview for, I forget who, but they had me be the moderator, and it was with the cast of The Office. So it was like,
oh, fun.
Kate Flannery, Meredith, and Kevin, Brian Baumgartner, and Oscar Nunez, and oh God, anyway, there was a bunch of them. And the first question I asked them, so we do introductions, and I said, so let me ask you guys, what was it like to be on the second greatest show of all time?
Nice.
And there was this pause, and then they go, well, you let us know, so yeah, they got me.
I mean, really. And then
I love The Office. I love that.
And then there's like all these theories of how the two worlds connect. It's crazy.
It's
the
nuts.
Fan lore that's out there. And
I was in a restaurant in Washington, DC with Kate and Oscar, and the people didn't know what to do. Some girls
like a unicorn.
Yes. Like, how are these worlds combined? How are these people together? Yeah. It's very funny. Very, very funny.
Yeah. I had one last thing. I had heard Dave Chappelle was doing his stand-up, and he was talking about the late 90s or 2000s. And he was out somewhere. It was him, Chris Tucker, and like somebody else. And people saw them and they were just like, how in the, how in the hell, like, could this even happen? Well, Jim, I tell you, this has been a pure pleasure. Obviously, we need to let people know to catch you on 911 coming up here in a couple weeks. Your episode airs.
911, and then I'm on the series called Liza on Demand. It's on YouTube. We just shot. I just shot my last episode last week. Yes, and then a big project coming up that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about yet because that's showbiz. But yeah, so I'm out there. Yes,
and amazing, Jim. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it.
This was fun, Brett. I appreciate it.